Alright guys, welcome to VALORANT News. Major Rostermania developments last night. Rumour has it that Boaster will indeed be staying on at Fnatic after major questions after the World Championship, whether he would retire, whether he would step away, whether Fnatic even might look to go in a different direction. That does not seem to be the case. One more year, one more attempt from Boaster's side to try and take Fnatic right to the top, but a serious roster drama going on elsewhere as well. Some new Sentinels scrims spotted again. There's been a lot of that over the last few days. What's changing, if anything? Very much interested to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Plenty to dive into today. Wanted to begin here with all of the nominations for the Esports Awards. They were announced yesterday. Esports PC Player of the Year, Forsaken and Brook nominated for that. Coach of the Year, Bonkar and Alex both nominated. Bonkar, I mean, what an absolute season he had, right? What a roller coaster ride on NRG last year. From the drama, from the Verno stuff, from maybe the situation with FNS, the chicken nugget salary with Chet, and then kind of out of nowhere NRG just got better and better every series they played and end up winning the whole thing at the end of the season. Alex, of course, also a justifiable nomination here as well. Pansy nominated for Esports Play-by-Play Caster of the Year. We have Mini nominated for Analyst of the Year. I think Sideshow as well got nominated as Color Caster of the Year, so great to see so much representation here. Brook and Kayak also nominated for Esports Breakthrough Player of the Year. So, you know, Kayak in the end, Fnatic came close but didn't win. Brook, of course, did. So with the Valorant nominations, he will likely be the more likely candidate. You know, there's also Mercury's from Call of Duty, who's going to be a serious threat in this conversation as well. NRG were nominated for Team of the Year, right? Because there's Organisation of the Year, but then there's also Team of the Year, which is a specific team. And like for NRG, had they dominated the season, then they could have for sure won this, but at the end of the day, they only got good at the end, but also they only got good when it really mattered. Also a couple of nominations such as Tarek, also Owner Pixel here, especially when it comes to Content Creator of the Year. I also got nominated for this for the second year in a row, which is very much appreciated indeed. So you guys can actually vote if you'd like to. I don't know when the voting ends. I think it ends in a few weeks' time. I would really appreciate it. It's probably not going to make any difference at all to who's actually going to win with the other names on this list, but it's still very much appreciated. Let's talk about Ascension, because here we go. Pacific is underway. There has actually been an interesting couple of developments here, especially with Nongshim actually taking a win. So they did get the dub yesterday against Full Sense 2-1. Wasn't exactly clean, but they got over the line. At the moment, it's just about trying to get to the playoffs. Then you can try and get back to the Pro League. Boom Esports looking okay, but there's also another development about Boom Esports we'll get to here in a second. There was also a massive result yesterday in Chinese Ascension, and that was this. Dragon Ranger Gaming versus Any Questions Gaming, and it was a 2-0 for Simon's team. Now, we talked about this yesterday, and again, Simon, yeah, he's obviously the face of this team because Edward Gaming, world champion, whatever, but he's not been the absolute star of all of their series. And DRG, it's very interesting, right? Vakashu, all the talk about, well, Vakashu is the top guy, and Demon 1 came in and all this stuff at the World Championship. Yeah, he had a really difficult second map. He went 5-18 on the Cypher, and it was a 13-11 on the Lotus on their map pick. The first map was a 14-12. So unbelievable scenes, really. DRG, of course, they're heavy favourites to win this Ascension tournament and qualify back to the league after being at the World Championship kind of recently. All of a sudden, it looks like Any Questions Gaming, Simon's team, have a legitimate chance. I mean, if you beat DRG, you absolutely could go on to do it again. Now, on the other side, Rare Atom took the win against Octagonal Disposition Gaming. That was a 2-0, 13-10, and then 14-12. So all of these series, massively competitive. And today, in a couple of hours' time, Octagonal Disposition Gaming will play DRG again to see if DRG can actually try and make a run here. But yeah, remarkable storylines happening over there in China right now. But look, it might not be either Simon's team or Dragon Ranger Game. Maybe Rare Atom get the job done. Maybe Octagonal Disposition Gaming, they could make the run. But yeah, this is a seriously big deal, right? They were the 7th seed, and it seems like they're getting catalyzed to a certain extent. So DRG will need to dig deep for sure. Today is also the first day of the Ascension tournament in the Americas. So 9Z, they're kicking things off against Envy, considered by many to be kind of the favourites here to win this. Of course, if they do win, they can't even play in the Pro League because they've got a couple of players that aren't yet 18. But that's that's all kicking off today with the first round of the Swiss stage. Then they'll do another couple of rounds. Then we get to the playoffs in the Americas with the champion decided not this upcoming Sunday, but the one after that. One quick thing on China, Tai Lu parting ways with Ninebody. So lots of changes happening all around the world right now. That was made official yesterday. There's also this development. I mentioned Boom Esports, and DOS9 was on Boom Esports, right, the Kazakh player, for some time, and apparently he might be on his way to Karmine Corps, which is a pretty big development, right? Karmine Corps had very well, I wouldn't say really an up and down season. It was mostly down, with the occasional glimpses that maybe they could start to go up, and then it all fell apart. Sadak, we know, is gone. He's going, we think, to Crew, and we'll discuss that a little bit more in a second. There have been some just outright theories that Gen.G might get poached by Karmine Corps. They probably have the money and the resources to do it if they wanted to. Of course, French speaking, it could make some sense, but also I don't think Gen.G is going to be wanting to leave Sentinels anytime soon of his own volition. Speaking of Crew, there is continued talk about less. Now, we know that Sadak, I think, is basically a done deal to Crew. There was talk about maybe Loud could be interested in Sadak again, but I would be sure that Les would be interested in playing with Sadak again. And maybe this is a masterclass from Crew to lock down Sadak and be like, okay, we've got him agreed verbally anyway, and maybe a contract isn't fully done, but we've got him agreed. That may attract players the likes of Les. Now, what's interesting about Les is that Durka, who we think is on basically the same deal as Les, extended for at least next season. Durka isn't going anywhere from Vitality, but they have allowed Les to explore offers. Doesn't mean they're going to get rid of him, but if they get an appropriate buyout figure, they may look to get rid of Les. And Crew is supposedly his #1 target. He's still got a contract with Vitality, but there does seem to be a world where we get a Les Sadak reunion, but this time on Crew, and that could be very valuable indeed. Com has been doing a lot of tweeting over the last couple of days. I mean, Com tweets, like it's in the name, I guess. We've talked about Evil Geniuses, we've talked about some other teams that could be interested in getting him again, but the big development for many yesterday in the community was around Boaster, because it was not official yet, but according to Alejandro, Boaster extends his contract with Fnatic for at least another year. He's been with Fnatic for a very long time, and despite getting so close again this year to winning big time on the international stage, it just didn't quite happen. And it was brutal the way, of course, they lost to the World Championship. They probably felt like, having brought it back from 2-0 to 2-2, they were going to win that final map. Ethan, as we know, had other ideas. But as Alejandro says here in the article, obviously they got so close to the goal, but he will re-sign for an additional year, his 6th year competing with the British team, because there were big questions after the World Championship whether he would step away or whether the team would blow it up or something like that. But yeah, we're not sure what's happening. But with his contract renewal, Boaster joins Kayak and Alpha, both under contract. So that's for sure. The rest of the team, as it stands, we don't know. Absolutely, they may look to go down a slightly different direction, but you know, Boaster will be there leading things up and reportedly, you know, wants to keep it around. And that's what he implied after the World Championship, that he wants to give it at least one more go. But, you know, we know one of the most legendary IGLs in the history of VALORANT for sure, and pretty synonymous with Fnatic at this point. So I think it's great news for the community that that story is not going anywhere. And whatever you think about Boaster, he is certainly a character that it is absolutely worth having in the scene. So hoping that works out. Maybe next year could be the year. As Zellsis says, the world has healed. Boaster's still on Fnatic. Everything is going to work out in the end. But speaking of Zellsis, he has still been spotted in some scrimbucks over the last couple of days. So a couple of things to still go through here. Firstly, T1 Meteor putting a couple of pictures out, you know, with Lakia and some others. There's been a little bit of talk about whether, you know, they could run it back to a Gen.G 2024 type situation, but who knows so much about that. But also, all of the scrimbucks a Sen C9, pretty much, right? We've got Sen, we've got C9, we've got NRG Donkey, whoever that is playing, but Kaplan, Zellsis, Zeppa, and then Demon Pookie. Now, Cloud9 are pretty careful when it comes to who they get spotted scrimming with. They use all these alternate accounts. You never really know who's actually playing. Sentinels don't really seem to bother with that so much, and you know, they just get spotted playing with who they're playing with. We got another one here where Kaplan was seen with Zellsis and with Narrate. Don't know who they were playing in this one, but still pretty interesting. So Narrate spotted again, Zellsis spotted again. Definitely feels like that's a consistent trend right now. There's a couple of explanations, because Zekken, Gen.G, on paper you're not expecting them to be going anywhere. So maybe the argument is, well, you don't even need to practice with them, don't scrim with them, because you know that they're going to stay anyway. But of course, you would ideally like to get some practice with those guys to see how your potential rest of your team will mesh with those players. That's one point. So the argument is, if you're on the chopping block, are you going to play more or are you going to play fewer scrims as a result? And it could be both ways depending on things, but we've seen Zellsis in quite a few, we've seen Narrate in quite a few, which at least means that they're heavily in consideration to stay, for sure. The name that we've really not seen much of course, is Bang, and that continues, right? All of these scrim boxes to know for the last few days, not many appearances from him in those scrims, at least from, like, there may be some sort of selection bias going on here with what we actually end up seeing and just some random chance and play, but it does feel pretty likely that Bang is being traded out frequently for other options that they are currently trialing. So that's pretty much where we're going to leave it for today. I'll just close out here with this. So Rocket Bullets put together his spreadsheets. I'll just share the Americas one with what's going on right now, because currently we have really no idea what many of these teams are doing, because MIBR, Aspas, Verno are actually deemed to be confirmed, but I think there are some questions, aren't there, about their contract status. 100 Thieves, we have no idea. Everyone is a question mark. Zekken has been linked as a potential question mark as well. Cloud9, we have no clue. I mean, you're expecting Oxy to not be going anywhere. We see Zephyr in all of those scrims, so that feels pretty likely. EG, no idea, but Yay and Nature almost certainly gone. Potentially they could look at Com or Nerve. Maybe a couple of other options have been reportedly linked there as well. Loud, it seems, of all of the teams have a more solidified setup. It does seem like Verti, Kawazan, Pancado, Luxo are going to stay. Potentially Artzan, potentially another IGL as well. They've been trialing around with a few ideas. Leviathan seem pretty close as well to what they're looking to do, but all the other teams have been looking at Sentinels. A bunch of question marks. Even NRG has a bunch of question marks, because we don't know exactly whether Ethan and Som are going to stay or they're going to call it a day. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.